Hello everyone, welcome to another video with the Young Funds program. You guys are probably used to hearing a lot from Travis. He's the one that normally shoots all of the videos here. So I'll take this opportunity now to just introduce myself. My name is Luis and I'm a mechanical engineering student at McMaster University. Travis is a very good friend of mine from high school and I strongly believe in his initiative. So I thought I'd give him a hand today and talk to you guys about a very important concept. And the concept that we're going to be talking about today is identifying your investment goals. There are three things we're going to cover today. The first one is answering the question of why should we even set a goal. The next one is what are the different types of investment goals and how can we begin to take our goals and classify them so that we can develop a smart investment strategy. And then I want to talk about a little bit about high and low risk and reward. Okay, so why should we set a goal? There's a great quote here by Stephen Covey that says, "Begin with the end in mind." This is something that I think goes way beyond investing and something that I think needs to be applied to your everyday life in anything that you want to do. If you're investing or if you're doing whatever it is that you're doing in life without a goal, then you have no direction and you have no way to measure your progress. And I think that's very important. I think you always have to have a goal in mind, and that goal can change. It doesn't have to be set in stone. But having a goal in mind lets you know that you're moving towards something. It kind of encourages you. And then along the way, it allows you to measure your progress, because then you can analyze and say, okay, am I on track to meeting my goal? And if I am, then good. And if I'm not, well, what adjustments can I make to my strategy so that I can meet my goal? And really, goals can just be very motivating, right? Because it gives you something to aim for and something to try to achieve, something to work hard to get towards. So hopefully that answers the question of why we should set a goal. In investing, we're going to make sure that we set smart goals, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But for now, I want to talk about the different types of investment goals. Usually in investing, we tend to classify our goals into three different categories. The first one is the short term, then there's the midterm, and then there's the long-term goals. And depending on the type of goal, if it's short-term, midterm, or long-term, your investment strategy is going to change quite a bit. So a short-term goal might look like paying for school, for example, because that could happen in the next 4 years, for example. Then the midterm goal could be saving up for a home, something that you know that is going to take place maybe not in 4 years, but maybe in 10 years. And then there's the long-term goals, and that could look like saving for retirement or saving up for your kids' education, something that could take, 20, 30 years or more. And this is how we would classify the different types of investment goals. So now, at the Young Funds program, of course, we're going to encourage you to focus on the long-term goals. The reason being is because we strongly believe that individuals have to utilize their asset of time. We think that when you're able to leverage time, the time that you have as a young investor, you're able to make the most out of your goals and you're able to take the safest route in order to achieve them. So before we can actually begin evaluating a goal, we need to first set one. And knowing that we want to focus on a long-term goal, let's say that our goal is saving up for retirement. It still needs to be tangible, so let's try to save up for retirement in 30 years, and let's go for a goal of $500,000. So now that with a goal in mind, we can actually begin to evaluate what would be a good type of investment for this goal. And I'm going to begin with an example here, and I hope that this example really exemplifies what it means to utilize your asset of time correctly. There's two investors here, Investor A and Investor B. Investor B has a lot more money in the present time. Investor B is able to make an initial contribution of $30,000, and Investor B is able to put down $1,000 every single year into that investment. Investor B is hoping to get a yearly return on investment of about 7%. Then there's Investor A. Investor A only has $2,000 to put down for an initial contribution, which is significantly less than Investor B. Maybe Investor A didn't do a very good job of saving their money up to this point, or maybe Investor A is just a young individual who hasn't had a lot of work experience and hasn't had a lot of opportunities to save up their money. But regardless, they're putting down $2,000. However, Investor A, is committed to his goal, and he or she plans to make yearly contributions of $5,000 to their investment. And just like investor B is expecting a modest 7% return on investment. If we, a lot of people that I know really relate to investor A, because a lot of people say that, they're not ready to invest because they don't have a lot of capital to begin with. A lot of people want to wait till they have 5, 10, 15, 20, or 30 or more $1,000 before they actually begin investing. And I hope that this example here will prove to you that that's not necessarily the case. What's more important is that you just get started. If we project out for the 30 years, we can actually see that investor B doesn't make their goal of $500,000 in 30 years in order to save up for retirement. Investor A, however, does. And you can actually see investor A becomes, more profitable than investor B right around the 10 and 11 year mark, which is pretty, significant to take note of. It's not so important how much you actually put down right away. What's more important is that you stay committed to your long-term goals, that you utilize the fact that you have 30 years and that you make as many contributions to your investment as you can throughout those 30 years. Okay, so generally speaking, investments with higher rewards also inherit higher risks. So now I want to talk to you today about how you can think about the type of risk that you're willing to take. Of course, at the Young Funds program, we are encouraging that you take low to moderate risk because we're shooting for the long term, right? We're not trying to gamble here. We're not trying to predict what's going to happen in the market in the next month or two. We're trying to be intelligent investors, and we have a goal to work towards. So I'm going to give you 2 tips to keep in mind when you're choosing a portfolio. Tip number 1 would be to choose one that aims for a modest 4 to 10% return on investment with low to moderate risk. If you choose something that's very risky, there's no guarantees that you're going to meet your goals. And I mean, if you're somebody who's a little bit financially better off than somebody else, or if you're somebody that has more capital and you're willing to take some risks, then my advice to you would be that you take 90% of your capital, and that you put it into the type of investment that we're talking about here today. Something safe, low to moderate risk, 4 to 10% ROI, something that will build towards your goal. And then you take the other 10% and you put that into something riskier. However, I do ask you to keep in mind that there is a difference between taking calculated risks and gambling. And so you have to know where to draw that line. And tip number 2 would be to make yearly or even monthly, if you can, contributions to your investment. And that's absolutely essential to growing your wealth. If you recall the example that we just did, investor A put more yearly contributions into their investment than investor B, and that's what allowed investor A to actually succeed in meeting the long-term goal of saving up $500,000 in 30 years. So now let's conclude by talking about smart long-term goals. When you set these goals, you want to make sure that they meet the criteria of being smart. So that means that they're specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, relevant, and they're time-bound. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example now of what a smart long-term goal looks like. A smart long-term goal would be, for example, saving up $20,000 over the next 4 years for the purpose of paying off your student loans. Why is that a smart goal? Well, for one, it's specific. So it's paying off student loans. It's not just, saving up money for the sake of saving up money. There's an actual specific purpose behind this goal. We're saving up to pay off our student loans. Okay, it's measurable. Okay, that's because it's quantitative. We have $20,000. That's the amount that we're trying to save up over the next 4 years. That's the time frame. And so anytime along those 4 years, we can reflect back and we can see if we're on track to meeting those $20,000. And if we're not, we can tweak our investment strategy to try to get us back on the right path. And that's why it's so important, again, to set goals. Also, it's realistic. It's attainable, right? It's not $500,000 or $1 million in 4 years. It's $20,000 over the next 4 years. That's something that is attainable. And once you have that goal, that SMART goal set, You can begin to ask questions like, okay, how much must I save per year in order to get me there? Knowing my monthly income, how much can I realistically save on a consistent basis? And knowing how much money I can save monthly, what kind of return would I need to meet my goal? And then, of course, we can start to develop an investment strategy. I'm not going to talk today about developing an investment strategy. However, stay tuned for more content to come from the Young Funds program, where we are going to get into, how to actually develop investment strategies. But before you can do that, the most important thing is that you remember that you have to set goals, and that goes for investing, and that goes for anything that you want to do in life. You have to set smart goals in order to be able to get to where you want to get. Otherwise, you have no direction. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I hope that I get a chance to speak with you guys again. Thank you for tuning in.